Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Monday. We've got a new week of NBA basketball ahead, and we've got plenty of news to dive into. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, a lot going on, and I think the big news, well, I mean, I guess there's a few big topics here, but the CBA sounding more and more likely to get done than ever. And we've got a few kind of juicy tidbits coming out about that. So why don't we start there with that one? CBA talk sounds like they're going to get this thing done before March 31st, and some interesting wrinkles revealed by Shams Charania today.
Yeah, and well, one of the like nice quotes that came out of that from the NBPA was, "We want to finish this deal soon, and certainly want this wrapped up before the March 31st deadline. It's close. We need to dot the I's and cross the T's." So that tells me we're getting there, right? And this is almost there. One of the changes that sounds like it's coming, I believe we've talked about this before, is changing the luxury tax bands. So it basically today's NBA, you go up in the luxury tax bands run from every $5 million, so it's 0 to 4.99999 million, to 5 million to 10 million, and they just keep jumping from there until you cap out, and then everything raises by 50 cents more in the luxury tax penalties. So that's good, because those bans were put in place when the tax became a thing with bans, and they were based on, well, that's what the mid-level exception is. So 5 million, you spend 5 million. Well, the mid-level exception is now worth twice, and soon will be 3 times that. So it was time to reevaluate those bans. And I think that's a really good thing, because it'll free up teams to spend a little bit more. Now they may go into the tax by, 6-7 million, depending on how the band changes, and that won't be seen as quite as punitive. So I think that's a really good change.
Yeah, so it's essentially the luxury tax. The deeper into the tax you go, the more punitive it becomes. The
Yeah.
higher rate you're going to have to pay for going that far into the tax. And I think this allows teams, and I can understand why the Players Association would want this too. It allows teams to spend a little bit more freely and to dip their toe into that luxury tax water without getting so burned like they would have previously. So I think this could be a good change.
Mhm.
There's still a lot of benefits to not going into the tax, specifically being part of that payout that you get if you're not a tax team. You get paid by all the tax paying teams, and so you get kind of a nice check there at the end of the year. So there's still incentive to not be in the tax, but if you're one of those teams that says, you know what, we're a piece or two away, it's not as daunting to go into the tax and do what you can to try to win games right now. So I like it. I like that change overall. I think it's a good idea, and they will try to keep they're going to try to punish teams who are going to just try to spend their way to a championship,
Yes.
essentially. So if you are a super spender, and right now we think about the Clippers, we think about the Golden State Warriors, those teams will continue to have to pay a heavy price in terms of the luxury tax. And some teams may just say, well, that's fine, we'll pay it. But they're going to try to make that continue to be punitive, just not quite as punishing, just to, as I said, kind of dip your toe in the water.
Exactly. I think the way I think about this is, if you're a team that is already, let's say you're 2 million over the tax, sometimes those teams will say, well, we're not going to use our taxpayer mid-level, because that's
Mhm.
going to take us into that next band, and then we'll be in trouble because that's more than what we really wanted to pay, and those kind of things. Sometimes teams will that's one way they in effect cheap out a little bit, and they're like, we don't want to go into that next band. That band is now bigger, then you can get into that and say, all right, yeah, we can still use our taxpayer, because we're not going to
Right.
trip into the next one, and those kind of things. Important, while we're on this subject, completely dead and gone is the idea of an upper spending limit, or so-called
Yes.
full hard cap. That's not even going to be a thing. It sounded like, had the NBA pushed for that to be a thing, we would not be probably having quotes like, we're crossing I or
No.
crossing T's and dotting I's. Like, we wouldn't be there, right? There would still be a full-on fight, and we'd probably be headed towards a lockout, most likely. So that's not going to happen, so that's a good thing.
I still love that they were calling it an upper spending limit, as
Yeah,
though they
right.
were, because hard cap sounds so much scarier, but that's
Yeah.
what it is. And so they were, you know, trying to soften that blow a little bit. But yes, not going to happen there. There was also a bit in there about the allowing 18-year-olds to come into the
Yes.
NBA. And last we heard, this was like a week ago, we talked about this, that it probably wasn't going to happen. Now it sounds a little more optimistic that it might. I'm a little bit confused though. Shams was mentioning that they would not want to take away jobs from veterans. They want to have some type of veteran mentorship. How do you accomplish that? How do you allow 18-year-olds into the NBA without removing jobs from veterans? There's only so many roster spots. Could that be could we be talking about expanding rosters, or how else do you accomplish that?
Yeah, that's exactly where I went to too, right? There's still only 450 standard roster spots, 510 if you count in the two ways. That doesn't sound like that's likely to change. So one of the things that I wondered is you could accomplish this one of two ways, right? First, you could do maybe every team has a special under 19 roster spot where it's
Mm,
for a player that's 19 and under, and every team can have one player like that. Another way you could accomplish that would be to, if you said every team can have an additional veteran of 13 or more years in the league. I don't know what that would be, 15 or more years, whatever it is, right? And that's how you could accomplish that. But maybe that you attach that they must be on a veteran minimum contract or whatever the case is. But otherwise, these two things don't work together, right?
yeah.
Every time you introduce younger players in, they're probably going to push some people out of the league. And I think it's not so much we all focus on the first year this happens because it will be a so-called double draft. We'll
Yeah.
have a bunch of kids come in that would have otherwise had to wait a year. Yes, there's probably going to be a huge impact there, but I think for most, it's more the accumulation of, all right, if teams start adding 18 and 19-year-olds. And then the other thing teams will do is rather than take a shot 23 years old, they will stockpile some 18-year-olds, put them at the end of the bench, especially if you're a deep team that's like, these guys are never going to play anyway. Put them at the end of your bench, really with the idea of go to the G League. That's where you'll play, you'll practice, you'll develop with us. And that's where I think teams are like, yeah, and instead of those, 7, 8, 9, 10-year veterans aren't going to get those opportunities because especially like if you're a rebuilding team, you don't need those guys at the end of your bench. Go grab a bunch of kids and see, maybe sign them all to, 3 and 4 year contracts. And if somebody pops, they pop, and now you've got them. So I'm very, very curious to see what the end result is on this changing of this. And it's funny because I know some people are like the NBA is trying to kill college basketball. Yeah, the NBA would love to kill college basketball. They don't care about college basketball. That's not their responsibility. But in reality, it won't because there's still going to be a whole host of kids who are going to go to colleges anyway. This comes around every time we go through these cycles of, well, that's it. The NBA is killing off college basketball, and guess what? Every year, you and I included, we watch a ton of March Madness and tune in,
Sure.
and it's awesome every year. So that's not going to go anywhere.
Well, it's interesting because you look at the NFL, and college football essentially feeds into the NFL. It's where you're seeing all of your top draft picks come from. But then you look at say soccer, you look around the world, and there's all these academies and everything
Yeah.
that players are coming up through. The college system is very much not a feeder into the professional ranks. Most players are playing at a professional level or playing with an eye towards going pro long before they hit college. So it feels more like the NBA to some level would like to move more towards a system that's reflective of that latter situation where you see in soccer where kids are getting on a professional track earlier rather than having to go through college. And I don't think that's necessarily from the NBA's perspective bad, but people will look at this and say, well, they're attacking college basketball or whatever. No, I think they're just trying to build the best players they possibly can and get the best product that they can. And they see this as the way to do that rather than kind of do this weird song and dance where a guy has to go to school for a year, but everybody knows he's not really going to stay. And it gets a little bit awkward.
Yeah, and the belief around the NBA, you talk to enough people, they will tell you players develop best when they're in the NBA. They'll develop best with us, within our systems, within our practices, within what we want it to be. So that sounds like that's where that one's headed. How we get there, that's going to be very interesting to see because this still seems like one where it's like, does either side really want this? Like
Yeah.
I'm still struggling to fully understand that, but we're gonna find out. A couple other issues here. The NBA, it sounds like there's still discussion around what is load management, what is resting, what is having guys available in key games mean. We've talked to that a million times. Nobody seems to have. I've yet to see anybody have a really, there it is, there's the fix, because to the point that a lot of people have made is, as other leagues have done things worldwide of, yeah, we're going to shorten down our schedule, they still rest guys 10%, 20%, whatever it is that they believe. It's just now you're missing a larger chunk of games, and it's still in 20% of the season, but it feels almost worse, right? Because it's I missed 25% of an NFL season, that's 4 games missed, whereas in the NBA it's like, all right, does it feel like as many because it's 20 games spread over several months and those kind of things. So we'll see where that goes with that and what they come up with. Another issue is the we talked about it a little bit on here. Bally Sports has they're declared bankruptcy. I think it's under the Diamond Sports Group or something like that, Diamond Sports Network, whatever it is. But it's Bally Sports, who broadcasts 16 teams games. Also, Warner Brothers announced they are getting rid of AT&T Sportsnet, which is another 3 NBA teams that fall under there. So 19 of the league's 30 teams are now going to be impacted by the regional the television providers. So we're going to see what impact that ultimately has. Does the league basically say, you know what, we're going to keep those rights for ourselves and we'll sell it ourselves as one team league passes or whatever the case is? And can they basically then say, we're going to figure out a way to get around these blackout rules and all those things? I think that's probably up for discussion with that. And of course, the players will want their chunk of that pie. And then the last 2 items, which are really important to us here, I think, on this show, is contract extensions, allowing more flexibility with veteran extensions. Now, in most cases, veteran extensions are 120% of the current salary, which is just not enough of a bump. Most guys will say, forget it, I'll play it out to free agency, or I can get a bigger deal. Think Kyrie Irving this year was one of those guys who was kind of in that boat to some extent. Then the other thing is they're talking about bumping it to maybe 140 or 150, maybe loosening some of the designated player language, those kind of things. So we'll come with that. And then also one that is really, really important to us is sounds like there's going to be cap smoothing. I know you, my friend, are an expert on this one because nobody wants a repeat of the 2016 Timofey Mozgov, Luol Deng signings. And I think everybody continues to point back to, look, that was a huge disaster. We don't really want that. So that's probably coming with what they'll do is they'll write it in the CBA, what the mechanisms are to smooth. Then as we get into the situation where it becomes these big spikes created by new TV contracts, which will come about a year after this new CBA is in play, then they'll already have the mechanism in there for here's kind of how we artificially cap, and everybody's in a better place. Because last time around, the NBPA was like, this smoothing stuff sounds shady. Like you're going to keep us from getting money. And it really is. And it's just, we're going to balance it so it doesn't all go to one group, of free agents in one summer. And then everybody else is like, man, I should have been a free agent a year ago. Like that's basically what happened in 2016.
Well, and that's certainly part of what happened in 2016, but we also saw a Warriors team that had just set the record for games won in a season, suddenly having cap space to sign Kevin Durant without losing most of their major pieces. So there's competitive reasons too why you have to look at that. And of course, we all think of the tragic example of Luol Deng and Timofey Mozgov. Reasons why you might want to protect teams
more
from
than
themselves.
Others.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Somebody retweeted that the other day. My tweet announcing that Luol Deng has finally come off the Lakers books. Like it still is coming up, and it's been a little while now. But for some reason, that's one of my highest performing tweets ever. But I do want to talk a little bit about this extension thing, though. So is this a good thing? Because to me, I hear this and I think, okay, I think about Kyle Kuzma's situation, right, with the Wizards. Wouldn't it be nice if they could offer him an extension that would make sense, and then they don't have to risk him going into unrestricted free agency? Or, right now they made it very clear to everyone that they weren't going to trade him. They believe they can keep him, and probably through talks with his agents, they have a good idea of what it's going to cost in order to hang on to him. That's fine, but still, there's no certainty until he actually puts pen to paper and signs that contract. So from the Wizards' perspective, there is still some risk here. and it's an uncomfortable situation, or can be depending on the play. It doesn't have to be Kuzma; it can be any player in this situation. And so, being able to give them a more legitimate bump in salary or having that option, that can be a good thing. But the two things that I think of most are, well, does that mean now that players who can get, let's say it's 150%, are automatically going to expect that 150% in the same way that we saw the Supermax lead to some players being traded away because a guy like DeMarcus Cousins was going to want that Supermax deal, and the Kings weren't sure if they wanted to pay it. They ultimately wind up trading him rather than paying it. I'm talking years ago. On top of that, NBA free agency has been such a major thing for this league during the offseason. It drives conversation. It drives the news cycle. The NBA has become a 365-day a year league in part because of that. Would having extensions be readily available? Would that in some ways nerf free agency? So those are the two things I think of first. And I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of how having the ability to extend players or greater ability to extend players might change things.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I think I'll start with the last part about free agency because it does come to mind, right? I've just so insight into my world. We're past the trade deadline. We're basically past buyout season. March 1st is really the end of buyout season. For all intents and purposes, we will still get signings for several weeks to come here, but guys getting free is done. So I'm already doing off-season planning. I'm already starting to look at free agent lists and that. It's a pretty bad free agent class.
Yeah.
That said, I think every year we will still see 3, 4, 5 major free agents move into free agency. That's still, even in a bad class this summer, there's still guys like James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Chris Middleton, Kyle Kuzma. There's still some pretty good free agents. The other thing is, I think NBA teams have been really smart and very willing to, all right, well, if we can't get them that way, let's do trades. Let's make trades. Let's make it happen. In some ways, trades are even more fun because then there's 2 or more teams involved, multiple players involved, and you get a lot more stuff going on there. So I think we'll still be okay with that side of it. I will say this, though. I like the idea of anything that gives teams and players more flexibility in doing stuff, I think is better. Now, people can argue, well, they still have that flexibility today. It's Kyle Kuzma's decision not to take an extension. Well, Kyle Kuzma signed a very team friendly extension with the Lakers a few years ago. He's
Yeah.
blossomed into an even better player. So now he's punished because, well, he could just take less money. Like, no, that's just not how it works, right? He's very good, and the Wizards have no recourse to be able to extend him to a number that makes sense. He's probably going to get 20 to 25 million this summer. The Wizards cannot give him that today. That's just the reality of where it is, right?
Right.
They're stuck with, hey, all right, you want to extend? Okay, cool. Here's, like 16 million or whatever works out to be. It's just not enough. So I think what happens in this case is you're going to see these teams, what they'll do is their teams and players is you're going to see a lot more of these extensions, and it's a lot more of these guys who are kind of the mid-range players, which I know it sounds insane to say a 20 to 25 million dollar guy is a
That's where we're heading.
mid-range. That's about where we're heading.
Yep.
Exactly. You're going to be 50, 60 million are your stars, and then you kind of go down from there. But I think what's going to be really interesting is how many teams instantly regret, like, oh my gosh, we signed this and now it's a mess. And I look at, we just had 2 of them literally just come to their logical end conclusion within the last year. John Wall, Russell Westbrook, both traded a couple times, but in Russ's case, 4 times on that Supermax contract. And you're going to see more of that because you're going to see, what if Kuzma could be extended and they gave him 30 million right now. And then 2 years in, it's like, oh my God, he's not good. Like, he stopped hitting shots and he's just not where he is. And now all of a sudden we're in a spot where it's, all right, well, now that's a bad contract. I love the idea. Let's give teams and players flexibility, but it's going to work just like it does today. There's going to be the almost instantaneous regret. There's going to be ones 2 years in where it's like, oh man, we shouldn't have done that. And that's just kind of the way this transaction cycle works.
Yeah, and I think that as long as you have, like, for example, you look at the Western Conference right now with the parity, that's going to create incentive to make moves on the trade front, which is kind of what we saw play out at the trade deadline. Um, so I do think there can be more movement there. I just look at, part of what's I won't say it's part of what's led to the NBA's popularity, but part of what's allowed the NBA to continue to stay at the forefront of the news cycle in part has been a byproduct of the shorter contracts
Sure.
by allowing more players to hit free agency more often by creating more player movement. And I don't think that was the intention with shorter contracts. I think owners were concerned about paying a guy on a 7-year deal and in year 3 he's suddenly not worth
Exactly.
that anymore. And oh my gosh, right? So it's a good thing, right? It's led to some good things too. More player movement has led to more interest in the NBA, more interest in the transaction game, and all of that. But if guys are signing these long term contracts and then they're getting extended and they never hit the market, I'm just wary that it could have a negative impact in terms of suppressing some of that. But again, if you do have parity, perhaps that does continue to increase the amount of moves that we see made, the amount of trades, and then you get things going there. And like you said, trades can be like free agency can be a lot of fun, right? We get
Oh, yeah.
Jordan getting barricaded in his home and all that kind of stuff, all the craziness that we've had around free agency. But I think you're right. The out of nowhere trade is probably even more fun. It's like the RKO coming from out of nowhere, right? Like it just hits you.
Sure.
And those are a blast. So if we get more trades as a trade-off for less activity in terms of player X signs with team Y, then I think everything's just fine.
Yeah, and I think it's just a slightly different way of thinking about how you start prepping for, all right, this is going to be a big summer for, whatever. And like you and I, we a couple of summers ago were like, this is going to be the summer of the trade because just wasn't good free agents, and it did kind of come to fruition. There were some massive trades that happened. I think back to, I think it's kind of sort of how our friendship started and evolved was out of, I want to say I did 4 or 5 shows with you about how can the Lakers get the cap space for LeBron? Like, how is
Yeah.
this going to happen? Right. And we would lay out all the scenario. They could do it this way, they could do it that way. They could, one of the things that we talked about was, well, they could stretch Luol Deng, and that's
Yep.
ultimately how it went down, and all those things. So those are the things where now I think it becomes, all right, well, how do you create the space to go trade for player X, right? And I think what you'll see is more trades where a player is traded in a cap space, potentially down the line if we see a lot of these guys jump on extensions. With that, I think one good byproduct too is maybe sometimes it feels like sometimes a team's window can be like 3 or 4 years only. Like look at the
Yeah.
Nets, right? We didn't even get 3 full years out of that Nets team. Really, it didn't feel like, because that first
Oh,
year KD missed, and then this year fell apart, and it feels like that's not super common, but somewhat common. And I feel like if you could extend and lock guys up, you may lean into, wow, man, we've been watching, I don't know, Boston and Philadelphia go at it for years with rosters of Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown against Joel Embiid, right? And that's like now we've kind of got those core groups that stay together longer, and this could help that. But it's like anything else. This league becomes very much about, for the superstar players, the money is generally almost the same just about everywhere. So then it becomes happiness, winning, where do I want to be? All those other things is what matters, and that's not going to change,
yeah.
right? That part of it will continue. Yes, we do more extensions. We will see more guys requesting trades midway through, a 5-year extension or whatever it is. That's just going to be how it kind of goes down, but it is what it is on that one.
Yeah, we very much landed back in a place where players are of the mindset of get the money now, figure out the
Sure.
destination later,
Yeah.
um, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing either for the league
Yeah.
or for players. Or
Yeah. When your entire career can change, one awkward fall,
yeah,
like get your money when you can get it. I'm never
absolutely.
gonna, never, ever, ever gonna. I may come on here and kill a team for giving a player money. I'm never gonna criticize a player for taking every penny you could get. It's just like if our boss, who runs front office show, comes to us and says, "I decided I'm gonna give you guys $1 million per episode." Great. I'm gonna take it. I'm not even gonna think twice. I'm just gonna take it, and
So
I don't
thank
know.
you.
Then then probably ask for a day off to go celebrate. But it's like yeah, man. It's. I mean, don't it's the whole idea of players sacrificing. That's they do in other ways. Like we've seen it. Like there's the smart teams know how to make it work with guys still getting paid.
All right, let's get into we talked longer here on CBA talks than I had intended, but I thought we got it. We got into
Right.
some good stuff that I think was important there. Hopefully our audience agrees, but let's talk about a few transactions. I'm probably going to save some of the things we had to talk about here, some of the more minor stuff. I'll kick it to tomorrow's show, but we do need to talk about this. Quin Snyder officially going to the Atlanta Hawks, new head coach there, somewhat unique in terms of a coach getting this big long-term offer. I believe he's getting $40 million, getting some measure of not total control, but having a voice in terms of personnel moves and all of
Mhm.
that, and having that happen mid-season. Now he's got what 20-ish games left to try to guide the Hawks into and through the playoffs. I'm interested to see how all this plays out because this is not the norm. Typically, you see a head coach of this caliber, they wait until the summer, get a fresh start, and then go from there. So I'm curious to see how all this plays out, Keith.
Yeah, I am too. I've been looking at this one as the Hawks are basically getting a jump start on next season.
Yeah.
With this is a all right. We're coming in. Maybe this juices them a little. They get some wins and they move on and they're a playoff team. But I think they're I would hope very realistic of we're probably maybe we make the first round, but we're not going to be around long in the postseason. But this is a chance for all right. What does Quin Snyder want to run? What kind of guys fit? Who are on the roster? How do we make this work? And that's how they start to put all this together here. And they're going to have roughly 20 games or so to get a somewhat of a feel for that. Like, all right, he wants to run some of the stuff he ran with the Jazz, and he wants to do this. All right, Trae Young can play the Donovan Mitchell role, so that's great. We're in this good spot with that, and those kind of things like that. That's what I think is going to be really good for the Hawks. As I look at this as this is a move being made today, but it's really a move that's being made for next season and then beyond. But this is a chance, get that, start the work today, right? Of like, let's see what this roster looks like and what it looks like under Quin Snyder, and then we go from there.
Yeah, ultimately they have to answer the question: can DeJounte Murray and Trae Young play together? Does it work? Can you have those guys together? And the more information you have in terms of the guy that you're going to commit to being your head coach, the more information you have towards answering that question under Quin Snyder, can we make this work? That's going to be important for what they do moving forward here, and they've got to figure out that question and then go from there. Figure out what pieces they're going to move, what they're going to do for this coming summer, and hopefully they can make a run here with Quin Snyder at the helm. But
One,
he is back. Yeah,
yeah, one thing on this one. I'm very curious to see can Quin Snyder invert those two, where
yeah.
DeJounte Murray plays more of the Mike Conley role of he sets the offense, he dictates things while Trae Young works off ball. I think that's something Atlanta has missed. Now the question is, can Trae Young do it? Right? Is he going to commit to, hey, when you're off ball, you're going to be like I'll be the 9 billionth person to make the Trae Young Steph Curry comparison. But can we make it work like that where you're attracting all the defense's attention because you're running around and you're really doing your work off ball, and that's opening up because DeJounte Murray, we clearly know from his time with the Spurs, he can run an offense just fine. So is that something he can get the buy-in from? And can he bring some of those Jazz sets where we're going to run Donovan Mitchell off ball to get him open, and you can do different things because Young has range that Mitchell just doesn't have, right? You can run stuff that is from 35 feet in with Trae Young. Now, Trae Young's not quite the paint attacker that Donovan Mitchell is, but he's also a better passer than Mitchell. So you can run, different kind of quirks and actions off of those initial sets. So that's something I'm going to be really looking for here over these last 20 games or so is do they kind of invert things a little bit where it's, hey, Trae, you're still the engine here, man. You still drive everything, but every once in a while, we're going to hand the keys to DeJounte, and you're going to just kind of be there ready for us to get it over to you to keep things moving. That way you just don't have to initiate every single action.
Going to be interesting to see how that plays out if they can make that work or not, and then there's going to be decisions to be made from there. Another decision that, well, I don't know if this is a decision to be made or not, but Sadiq Bey apparently wants a DeAndre Hunter type contract. Hunter's new deal starts next year, 4 years in the range of 90 million.
Yep.
I don't like I like Sadiq Bey. I thought he was an interesting guy that was out there on the market. I don't see anybody give him 4 years, 90 million.
Yeah, this is for for me. Let's put this one on there. It's good to have dreams, kids. Um, I I don't know. I don't even know that I like Sadiq Bey less than I like DeAndre Hunter. And I just get done saying let's give the players all of the right.
Yeah,
Like let's give them all the money they can get. I just I don't know, man. I feel like that's too rich for my blood. Like I do not want to be giving him a contract that's in the range of 20 to 25 million a season. Like that's just that feels like too much. He doesn't shoot it well enough to really earn that for me. What's his place in Atlanta? Can you play him and Hunter together? For long-term minutes, is that going to be your 3-4 if you do eventually trade John Collins somewhere? Those are the questions if you're the Hawks, if you're going to hand him that kind of money. Now, to be clear, that would be in an extension. That's what he's looking for because
yep.
he's not a free agent or anything. He's still got another year to go after this one on his rookie scale deal. But that's where he's starting as an extension point. If I'm the Hawks, I got to be looking at like, man, I'm trying to get out from under this Collins contract. Like, I don't know that I can turn right around and then give you that same money in a deal.
Right.
And now I'm down John Collins. And I think anybody who watches and listens to this knows. I certainly think John Collins is a better player out of the three of Bey and Hunter in that mix there. I think he's better than both of those guys. But it's just a weird situation. There was a kind of an odd trade, and it's I don't know. I'm curious to watch how this one plays out over the next year or so.
Yeah, something that the new Hawks front office will have to navigate. Another big
And
thing that could
important on
go
that.
ahead.
Sorry, they did go trade for him. So
Correct.
there's it's not like he was a leftover from the old front office. Like
Mm-mm.
these guys made that trade. So that is a good call out by you because I think that's something to keep in mind.
That's a good point because that kind of stuff does matter. It matters. We see it all the time. That stuff matters. All right, James Harden. This is it was a couple of weeks ago when this first came out. We were hearing James Harden, maybe him going back to the Rockets isn't all that far fetched. Now this is continuing to linger, and the 76ers have been playing some of the best, if not the best basketball in the league. Like they've been tremendous. They've been right there as a top tier team. It still strikes me as odd that this is coming up when the 76ers are playing so well. Is this just about making sure if this is this just James Harden making sure that nobody tries to get cute with his contract this summer, or do you think that he could really be a flight risk, no pun intended, to go back to the Rockets?
I think it's possible. I mean, the people who are talking about this are people who would know. A lot of it comes from Tim McMahon, who's close to obviously the Rockets and get close to James Harden over the years. Brian Windhorst has mentioned it. You hear it from a lot of people on the ground in Houston. I didn't realize until some stories were written over the last few weeks of how much time he still spends in Houston. He still
Yeah.
worked out at the Rockets facility a lot of times over the summertime, which is kind of sort of odd. That might be one of like, hey, I'm in town. I want to get a workout in. But if you're doing that a lot, that's something that's kind of weird. So yeah, I think that's I'm gonna say I'm watching the smoke here now, right?
Yeah.
Like let's see, does this turn into a full-blown fire that then you need to go? And if I'm Philadelphia, I'm a little bit like, dude, I know you gave up money for us to build, but we signed PJ Tucker for 4 years. We signed Daniel House. Like we did all these things with the idea of like having you around to lead it. And who knows what happens.
Yeah. Man. I mean, that would just be like the NBA is already that league where I just feel like anything can happen at any time. I mean, look, we looked at the Brooklyn Nets and I know this is all James Harden adjacent here, but the Brooklyn Nets, we're looking at them going, man, this team's going to be good for years. And what they wind up playing, Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and Harden, like 16 games
I
together or
don't even
something
know.
like that. Like
Yeah.
it was
Not
something
enough.
ridiculous, something ridiculous, and you just never know. Like we would have never said, like, back in the day, we would have people were saying, "Oh, Joe Johnson, that contract's never gonna get traded." Got traded. B James Harden is never gonna go back to Houston. Now here we are. Dwight Howard was a villain in LA for leaving to go to Houston, and then years later, he comes back, and within, like, 3 games, he's a fan favorite. Like, you just never know what's gonna happen in this league, and it's absolutely crazy, and, man, I can only imagine the response if Harden really does go back to Houston. What kind of team would he even be joining there? Like, what would Houston have to commit to entice him to come back? Would he be okay with, hey, I'm just gonna help the young guys build, or would this become a, hey, you better cash in some of these young players and get me some guys who can win right now? This is gonna be absolutely, absolutely just mesmerizing if this is what happens this summer.
Yeah, and I assume it's a ladder there. I assume it's going to be like, all right, we got to move some of these kids on, get some veterans in here, and let's try to win. You certainly James Harden is still a good player. I think we both maybe had him as a pick for the All Star game, even though he didn't make it. I know I did. He was one of my last picks, but I still thought he should have been an All Star this year. But he's no longer the MVP level. James Harden built the entire ecosystem around him, let him run
Right.
everything. So that part's like you got to be careful, right? Because if you're Houston, you're bad. I mean, they are bad right now. I mean, Damian Lillard just dropped 71 points on them last night with relative ease. So I really don't know that I really don't know where we go with Harden to that team unless it becomes all right, we're gonna package 3 or 4 of the kids to you kind of probably say, all right, who do you want to play with? Okay, you like player X, Y, and Z. Great, we'll keep them. We're gonna package the rest of the guys together, maybe with some of the draft picks we got for you in the first place, and we're going to get these other players, and that's how we move forward. But yeah, it's you got to be really careful here if you're Houston. This can't be one where it's, well, you know what, we were bad after we traded them for a couple years, and now we're impatient and we want to be good. Oh, we can get him back. Great, let's go because you're not getting the same guy back that you traded. That's the big thing you got to be cautious of.
Speaking of the Rockets, just to touch upon this while we're on the topic, they do sign Willie Cauley-Stein to a 10-day
Yeah.
contract. Welcome back, Willie. So we'll see
Hey,
if he can stick there.
if he plays defense, he'll be the first and only guy that plays defense on that entire team. So
That's right, and it's
good
just
for him.
part of how Damian Lillard went for 71 points last night. Lillard goes for 71, and that's not, and I don't think that was our most important topic of the day, this league, right? But 71 points for Damian Lillard, incredible stuff. And I don't know, did you see the Donovan Mitchell tweet afterwards?
No, I didn't.
He said his mom and either texted him or so, I'm paraphrasing this, but said, my mom texted me and said Dame had 71, and she said, now you better go get 72.
I love it. That's awesome. So I'm gonna ask you the same question. I put this on Twitter. I feel like we're a decade, someone's gonna get to 100. Like I just feel like we're there now. I feel like we're gonna have some game that stars are gonna align, and it's the really great, amazing offensive player. He's got like 10, 12 threes at halftime or something. And it's going to be like, all right, and he's already at like 40 something points. And it's going to be, let's go. Like, let's really make a run for this. My thing is, I hope if it happens, it comes in the flow of a game. It doesn't turn into a circus where it's just, we're gonna fine if it's 2 minutes to go and the guy's on like 96 points. Yeah, you let him get some shots up, like 100%. But I feel like the pace of the game, the way guys can shoot threes now. But the weird thing is, I say that, and then you look at it, and it's like you could hit 23s, and you still have to find 40 more points.
Yeah.
Like some way. So it's gonna have to be like 23s, 20 free throws, and then you hit 10 other baskets or something in that range. Like, and that's how you get there. I think it's gonna happen. I just like I think we're finally close enough to these big scoring games happen enough that I do think this will happen. Where are you at?
I think I don't know, like, it's possible, but I look at, like, nobody's still touching Kobe's 81. Like,
Yeah,
71 is a lot, but it's
it's
not
still
like,
10
think about
points.
that.
Yeah,
Lillard went for 71 against a Houston team that plays super fast and plays no defense, and he still has to score 30% more to get
yeah,
100. Like, that's a ton. That's a lot. I mean, but again, I'll say it's not out of out of the realm of possibility the way guys are shooting threes. That certainly does help things. But I think that it might take somebody like gunning for it to make it
And the
happen. I
game
don't know that
has
it happens in the flow of things.
yeah, that's the thing. It 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 has to be the guys going for it, but the game also has to be somewhat close. Can't be a 40-point game because they just won't leave them in long enough. Yeah, if it's a 40-point game with 5 minutes to go because you went on a 15-0 run to blow open a 25-point game, then you may say, all right, he's close. We're gonna leave him in and let him make the run here.
Yeah.
But like I look back at Kobe's 81, they needed those 81.
Yeah.
What like that was like
That
a
was to
real
win that
game
game.
where the Lakers needed that. I think the Lakers pulled away at the end of the game. Right. If I remember correctly,
I
it's
think they were
been a
down at
while.
halftime.
Yeah, but they needed him to keep scoring, and that was one of the all time like, all right, get on my back, I'm going to carry you guys tonight, and and it's anytime you hear Jalen Rose talk about it, it's funny. I love his, you didn't high five him after the game. He's like, just dropped 81 on us. Why would I high five him? Like, I'm not happy about that. Like, and that's
Well,
good, right? That's the way it should be. But yeah, I just think, I'm like, all right, man, 71. He shot 22 of 38. He was 13 to 22 from the field. So there were some misses in there. Like, it's get up 10 more shots, make hit a few more of them. And now we're talking, once you get to 70, you start thinking like, all right, maybe it could be there. But
yeah.
yeah, you're to your point, you're still 10 off Kobe, and that was still 19 off the record. So you're
So,
still a whole, another amazing game away from, even tying the record.
and the other thing I think of is there's been so much criticism of Toronto for that Kobe 81 game and the way they defended him about not sending hard doubles sooner and things like that,
Yeah.
And look, I understand there's obviously going to be all that kind of conversation, but schematically, you do see a lot of that in today's NBA where teams are saying, "Okay, I'm going to send a hard double at this player." We saw the Lakers do it last night against the Mavs. I'm going to send two guys at Luka the second he crosses half court. We're going to make him give it up, and we're going to accept that for 3-4 seconds, however long until we can recover. We're going to play 4-on-3 essentially if he makes the correct pass, and we're going
Yeah.
to try to live with that. We saw who was it that was playing the Clippers the other night and did that to Mason Plumlee and put him
Oh,
in
yeah, yeah.
decision
Yeah.
yeah, they put him in decision-making situations in a 4-on-3 situation because they doubled the ball, and then they went and just, they were able to knock the ball away from him. And that's become such more of a common thing in the NBA today that I think teams would start sending that hard double pretty early. Like, it's gonna be hard to get
It's
100 and not have the player have to give up the ball. It would be
yeah,
difficult. Let's say that.
it's got to be a guy who's going to take a ton of 3-pointers,
Yeah,
make a ton of 3-pointers, also get some free throws because that's going to be part of it. And to your point, it's going to be someone who, when a team's like, yeah, this ain't happening, like you're not doing this to us. It's got to be a guy who can get off the ball, but then find his way
trying to
to
get
get
back.
open and get the ball back. And it also is going to take, you're going to have good passers on your team too to get you set up. Like I think, like Curry, you could see like prime Steph Curry, you could see him making a run like that, right?
Yeah,
Because you could see him being a guy who could get to the. Because I really believe you got to get probably close to 23s and probably somewhere close to 20 free throws, and you could see that with him, and he's very good at giving the ball up and then the ball finds its way back to him
relocated.
because you can't give the like I don't want to do a full breakdown on Lakers Mavericks incredible win for the Lakers, like been saying that they even pulled that off, but like Luka would accept those doubles, give it up, but then
And
I don't know
then
if he
stop.
moved more than 5 feet
Yeah.
further into the offense. So he was just like, all right, I gave it up, and then I still stood 45 feet from the basket. Like that was, that Mavericks team. I'm very disappointed. You can not take anything away from the way the Lakers played defense because they played great defense. It cannot be that hard for you to score when you have Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. It just can't be. Like there's no reason for that. That's ridiculous. And it's not like the Lakers were rolling out the 1990s all defensive Jordan Pippen led
Yeah.
Gary Payton defensive team. They played very well, but come on, like those two got to create more baskets. But that's a whole other. I could go on that rant for we'll talk that later down the line, I'm sure.
But I think you brought up a good point. Like, who's the player that could do it? Like you mentioned Steph Curry, and maybe he could, but as these guys, like the two guys I would point to would be Curry and Durant. But are they getting to a point where they're old enough to where they're
Yeah,
just like, "Man, I'm not,"
yeah,
they're not gonna go play 45 minutes in a game in order to get to that point. Like, that's something. And Curry, you're right. He's like Rip Hamilton off the ball, but he's a flamethrower from 3. He's constant movement. He's a pain in the butt to defend. So maybe he's one, but if we look at Curry and Durant as being maybe too old at this point to do it, not saying they couldn't physically do it, but just, are you gonna burn through that many minutes of theirs at this stage of their career? So who's the player that could really hit 100 then?
yeah. I wonder if you could get one of those nights where Luke is getting the three to fall because he does draw a ton of free throws.
Mhm.
Like it could maybe be him. To your point too, yeah, Curry, Durant, even Dame, like
Yeah.
these guys are aging. But there would have been a point in time the threes would have been really hard. So it would have been one of those nights where it's like, all right, so LeBron took 30 free throws, made almost all of them, and he got 15 fast break dunks. But that's not who he is anymore.
No.
Um, somebody's probably waiting for me to say Jason Tatum, but just he doesn't shoot enough. So he's not, because you have to be. I mean, Dame got up 22 3-pointers. Some of that was, hey, I'm hot. Hey, it's
And
they have
he's
to
shooting from
answer.
the logo.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not what
Trey,
Tatum does.
Trey Young, maybe because
Maybe.
he could be a guy who
He
could
he he can get a lot of free
score.
throws. We
Yeah,
know
yeah, he
that.
does get a lot of free throws. So yeah, because it's got to be that combo though. That's the only way we're gonna get there. Because everybody who said the Will Chamberlain game, like everything that's ever been written about it, because there's no video of that game. Everything that's ever been written about it is it turned into a circus at the end. It was just he was barely running the floor, and his teammates were just throwing him the ball at the rim. And you got to also remember he was like 5 or 6 inches bigger than almost everybody else then.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be super high paced game. Teams are flying back and forth. If it's going to happen, I think it happens in like March or April when, the bad team is the key is the bad team needs to make enough shots their way to keep
Mhm.
them in it enough because it's going to have to be 150 point game or something like that at least for it to happen. So, but
You
that's
know who's gonna
maybe.
be 5 or 6 inches bigger than everybody else?
Oh yeah, Wemby.
Yeah. And again, by no means am I saying this guy's gonna come in and
Yeah.
set an
Trevor
all-time
now set
NBA
the
scoring
baseline.
record or anything
His
like that. I'm just
baseline expectation is Wembanyama scores 100 points per game
yeah, he has
at
to
Trevor
average it.
Lane.
Average it. That's that's
Yeah,
what that's what we're
yeah,
saying here. That's what we're saying. I guess last thing we'll get to, I'll send our other topics over for tomorrow because I know we're running long here. But
yeah.
Mark Lazary sells his stake in the Bucks. The Bucks had a 3.5 billion with the B valuation. The Suns just went for right around 4 billion. Uh, what do you thought with NBA franchises? I mean, the owners who invested in NBA franchises anytime in the past, really, at this point, the return is absolutely incredible. And I think that's part of why we're now seeing franchises valued in the billions because there is this new TV deal coming and everything. These investments, they became just incredibly valuable to people who had the means to get in when they did.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say Lazary and Edens paid 550 million for their split majority stake in the Bucks, and now Mark Lazary's cashing out on his half of that majority stake, and for at a 3.5 billion of valuation, he's going to clear just under $1 billion, probably about 900 million because he owns 25% of the team. It sounds like he's selling his full 25%. So yeah, I mean, and it also says this the CBA going as smoothly and as easily as it has. They know they're sitting waiting on a big pile of TV money coming their way. The league's in great shape. Like these
Yep.
things all add to. We're gonna get expansion. We're gonna get 2 more teams. That's coming on the backside of all this coming. Like it's players are making more money than ever. The league's super deep in talent. It's I don't know that in my entire lifetime the NBA has been in a better spot than it's in right now. Like it's just the games are good generally. It's an entertaining product to watch. So and I know somebody's gonna be like, well, nobody watched the All Star game. Well, fine, you can say that, but it's still when it matters, everything that really matters like is in really good shape for this league.
Oh, I've had people asking me why are we seeing so many like comebacks? Why is no lead safe anymore in the NBA and all that sort of stuff? And this was not even after the Lakers comeback last night, but you do have that, like a team gets up by 15, 20 in the first
That
half,
means
and you're like,
nothing.
this game is not over.
Yep.
And I think that's a great thing. It creates more buy-in, more incredible moments. I think that in terms of the on-court product, it's getting better. But you can say, well, I miss the good old days when teams could really play defense. And there's always going to be something to gripe over. The bottom line is that the NBA is producing incredible moments on a nightly basis. Their off season is the best in sports, right? When you look at the player movement, we look at
Trade
all the
deadline is
the
the
trade
best
deadline is
by far.
oh,
Yeah. Yep.
by far,
Yep.
right? Like it's not even close. Their
Yeah, I mean, we
dominance in
did a
terms of
show at
social media,
1:30 in the morning, East Coast
yeah,
time, and had the most people live watching that we've ever had. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, and that's yeah, it's I also think too when I really look at some of the stuff, like somebody said to me, they're like, I don't know, man, this game's just nonsense. Everybody can score now and all that. And I'm like, dude, I remember watching in the 90s, Mike Fratello's Cavs teams that were like, hey, we don't have the talent to keep up with Jordan the Bulls. So how we're gonna do this is we're gonna bleed every second of every shot clock.
yep,
They were one of the biggest reasons they put in that they changed it from 10 to 8 seconds to bring it up the floor because they would inbound it. Jerome Brandon would take 9.9 seconds to get it over half court, and then they took a shot. It was like 7 seconds or less, but reverse because it was you better not take a shot before there's
three
until there's
seconds on
under
the clock, yeah,
exactly. It was like there better be less than 3 seconds on the clock, and their games were like 75-70, and they were awful. And they were the extreme version of it, but there were a lot of games like that. Go back and look at some of those playoff scores between the Pistons and the Spurs and the Nets and those teams, right? I mean, even the Lakers when they played the Nets, I think, in back-to-back finals, like those weren't good, great games, right? Like those were like, especially compared to what we watch now. Like, I don't know. I'm not the kind of person who's like points, because I appreciate good defense. It's just
yeah,
you adjust, and guys are just better now. They're better. They shoot more threes, and the game is played so much faster. The
yeah,
bottom team in pace now would have been the top team in pace like 3 years ago. So that just kind of tells you like how fast we're playing this game now. And it's just for me, it's just better, and I think it's more enjoyable. And more basketball creates more highlights, more fun stuff, and it creates more variance. Like you said, it's no game's really over. Even 20-point leads in the fourth quarter don't feel safe sometimes, right? Until you get under the 5-minute mark. And I know some fan bases are like, yeah, I feel good if we're up by 20 with less than a minute to go. Like that's when I'm like, okay, I can breathe.
yep.
And it definitely feels that way sometimes.
I know it sounds like hyperbole, but it's not necessarily because I mean we've seen games where a team is up 8 and there's a minute left, and next thing you know, you're going into overtime. Like that
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
in today's NBA, which is amazing. It's fantastic. And you're right. Yeah, the Nets got the Lakers and then the Spurs back to back, and those were just
Yeah.
grinds of NBA finals. You don't see that as much anymore. You see teams that are able to score the ball at a high rate. You see teams that are deploying all kinds of crazy things in terms of generating floor spacing, in terms of generating shots. It's amazing, and it's a lot of fun. And I think that people can get upset that it doesn't look like the good old days. Well, it doesn't.
Yeah.
The sport has evolved. The 7 seconds or less Suns are moving at a snail's pace compared to the way teams are moving now,
Yeah.
and that revolutionized the NBA. Like
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah, that was
crazy
oh
stuff.
my god, this team plays so fast. The other thing too is never forget to this is why things like offense and defensive rating are so important
Mhm.
because that normalizes everything. So when you go back and you look and you see like, yeah, people thought that Suns team played no defense because they just looked at points per game. But if you went back and looked, it's like, yeah, the defense actually wasn't that bad. They were just playing faster than everybody else.
Yes.
That's the things you need to kind of go back and look at and see like, all right, so what is the it kind of adjusted and all that stuff. So, but that's deeper into this. Yeah, Bucks. Mark Lazary making a ton of money and good for him. And this probably doesn't happen if they didn't put a bunch of money in and pushed Wisconsin to help build them a new arena and all the other things. And then of course
Right.
getting Giannis, winning a title like that obviously helps everything along the way too.
Yep. Yep. And the ownership group that's coming in, I believe, also owns part of the Browns.
Yep.
I
They
want to
own
say
the
they own part of
Browns
the
and the
the Columbus
Columbus Crew. Yep.
Crew. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they've got a few other sports franchises there. But in any
And
event,
just in case
things are
anybody
good.
asks, fair to ask questions about bringing in a partner that gave Deshaun Watson a massive contract extension while he was in the
Oh,
middle
good point.
of an ongoing investigation and suspension. That's fair, like totally fair to ask those questions. I don't know enough about that to comment beyond that, but if people, do, like, it's not word. I know I didn't mention it and bring it up as a big storyline here because I don't know if not enough about it. I have to read a lot more, but I do know that that's fair to ask those questions. Like that seems, completely reasonable to say, like, is this really who we want involved here? Like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look more into it and we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. Well, you know what? We got through about half of what we planned to get
Yeah.
through today, but Keith has always had a lot of fun talking basketball with you.
Yeah.
This was a good time. Everybody who is watching and listening, make sure you are subscribing to the NBA Front Office Show YouTube channel. If you made it all the way to the end here, which this is one of our longer episodes, we know you're a real one. So one of the things that Keith and I have been kicking around is the idea of once a week or so going live and allowing fans to come in and ask some questions and having a set time each week where we would go live. And I think Keith, we talked about once a week, probably doing
Yeah.
that. So give us your thoughts on that idea. Is that something you would like to see? Should we do that like a midweek type thing? And should it be like a fun Friday? Just give us your thoughts. We know that if you made it to this point of the episode, you're one of the long haul people. You're a real one. You're a front runner.
You're a true front
Uh,
runner. Yep.
that's right. That's right. So fire it off in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts on that idea. All right. I think that about does it. Until next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.